Albino whitetails, like this buttonbuck, are a rare sight over most of North America, but there are some locations, like my hometown of Marquette, Michigan, where the odds of seeing an all-white whitetail like this one are much higher. The genetics in this community favoring albinism can be traced back to another buttonbuck that was born in the wild near Rapid River during 1982. Due to concerns about that albino's safety, the public urged the DNR to capture the white deer and put it in captivity. Former Michigan Department of Natural Resources veterinarian Steve Schmidt, who retired in 2016 after 30 years on the job, used a dart gun to sedate the deer. The young albino buck was then put in a deer pen at Marquette's Presque Isle Park. During the years the white buck spent in the enclosure, he bred most of the does in the enclosure. Years later, when the fence was removed and the deer were set free, many of them, like this doe, had genetics favoring albinism. In fact, that doe that was released from the enclosure gave birth to these twin albino bucks that survived. Here's those twin albinos shown nursing. I was successful in photographing those white bucks during their first year of life. One of the twin albinos grew antlers with 4 points for his first set, and his brother had 5 points. The forkhorn grew a beautiful set of 9-point antlers as a 2-year-old, and he spread his genes elsewhere in the city limits. This albino doe was one of the white buck's offspring. That albino doe produced plenty of fawns over the years, some of which were white in color, and others were normally colored like these two, but they all had genetics favoring albinism. When another normally colored doe gave birth to twin bucks during 2016, one of which was an albino, I decided to try to document the white deer's first year of life using a video camera. The year before, the same doe had given birth to a single albino fawn in the same area, and I filmed that white fawn as often as I could until it was hit by a car in December while attempting to cross a city street. The doe's fawning territory is a thick patch of brush less than 10 acres in size that is perfect for raising fawns, even white ones that don't blend into their environment. The brush is so dense, fawns can easily hide and remain out of sight. The fact that the patch of brush is surrounded by city streets is a problem. Even though the speed limit is 25 miles per hour on those streets, not all drivers follow the speed limit. Although the streets around the patch of brush where the doe gave birth to albino fawns 2 years in a row increased their vulnerability to roadkill, the small size of their refuge made it easier to monitor those whitetails too. It also made the white deer more visible to motorists. Many drivers and their passengers were thrilled to see the white deer as the family crossed a road in front of them or grazed in one of the openings along those streets. During the summer months, it was easy to photograph the albino and his family from a vehicle as they moved into the openings surrounding the thick patch of brush where they spent most of their time. Since the deer were used to vehicles, I was even able to get some decent close-ups of the albino from my vehicle. The deer eventually got used to my presence and realizing I wasn't a threat, so I could photograph them wherever I encountered them. That proved to be an advantage by autumn. After the leaves started falling, the albino deer was easy to spot in their former sanctuary. So the family of whitetails spent more time moving around to different areas. When winter arrived, they spent part of the snow season at Presque Isle Park. That's where I filmed the albino feeding on lichens on the bark of this evergreen tree like I've seen other whitetails do. By spring, the threesome moved back to their summer range. By late May, the yearling bucks were starting to grow their first sets of antlers. By June, the young bucks were on their own as their mother prepared to have another set of fawns. Unfortunately, the albino buck was struck and killed by a vehicle on June 18th as it tried to cross. I was anxious to see what type of antlers the albino would grow for his first set. Now that won't be possible. The odds of survival are stacked against an albino whitetail from the time they are born because their coloration makes them susceptible to predators. Albinos that survive their first months of life still face the same challenges that other whitetails do. So if you see a whitetail that has reached adulthood, it has truly beaten the odds.